Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We are ready to start day 2 of our Keep Calm. Oh my gosh, Keep Calm in Homeschool through 2021. I'm so excited that you're here to join us today. And this session specifically is mid-year course correction. What needs to change? So we're going to talk about all the things that could change and maybe how to approach that.
There's no audio. We're not getting any audio.
We're struggling with audio, so if you can hear us, we're just checking that right now. Just give us 1 minute and our audio will be out.
Oh, they said we can hear you.
Oh, they can hear us.
All right, awesome.
Maybe this is on our end.
That's a winning thing this morning. I needed to win, Judy.
Yes, you did.
I needed to win this morning, so I'm
All right.
happy audio is working. Okay,
Right.
and we're back. So just a reminder that everything that you're watching for the next 2 days is going to be available for 30 days after. And so yeah, we're hoping that you can enjoy it, you can find inspiration. If you're busy or if you have to walk away, just know that you can, and everything will be there for the next 30 days. I'm going to introduce these lovely ladies that are here with me today. And they're going to talk all about mid-year course correction. So first of all, Judy. Judy is my partner in crime. Hello, Judy.
Good morning, Stephanie. How are you today?
I'm good.
That's good. So yes, I am a retired homeschool mom of 3 amazing adults, and we are just getting ready to start our second generation of Sonlighters at our house. I'm also the marketing sales coordinator at Sonlight, which means that I have a team of amazing women who go out to a number of homeschool conventions, we hope, this summer and meet you and talk to families about what they're passionate about, which is homeschooling with Sonlight.
Perfect. Well, thanks for being here, Judy. And Amber, welcome.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Amber Severance, and I have been on the homeschooling journey since 2002 using Sonlight, and I have graduated 3 students through my homeschool. 1 is successfully adulting, 2 are in college, and I still have a 10th grader and a 5th grader at my house. So I feel like I'm really in the thick of things, but I'm so thankful for the opportunity to be here and hopefully encourage you.
Perfect. Thank you, Amber. And Jen, welcome.
Thank you. I'm Jen. I'm a veteran homeschooler. This is my 19th year. Normally we're out at conventions every season, so hopefully we'll get to see some of you out there this year. I still have 2 at home, 2 have graduated, and yeah, so I'm just happy to be here.
Welcome. And Sheila, welcome.
Hey, I also am a veteran homeschooler, and I have graduated 3 kids. 1 did go to private school just for high school, and then the other 2 homeschooled all the way through. The 2 older ones are graduated and somewhat launched, and then my youngest is in nursing school.
Very good. Thank you. And Stephanie, welcome.
Hi, Stephanie. Well, I'm Stephanie, obviously, and I'm a homeschool mom of 2. We've been on our homeschooling journey since 2006, and we began that journey overseas. I just graduated my oldest last summer through our homeschool, and I'm now currently homeschooling a 10th grader. So glad to be here.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for being here. I do hope that you guys get to go out to conventions and talk to families this year at some point. We're all praying for that here at Sonlight. So today we're going to talk about the mid-year course correction. The first question I have is, how do you go about a diagnosis for how to make a change, for if a change needs to be made? Anybody?
I think sometimes your students will be the first ones to let you know something's not working. And so then the question becomes, what is it that's not working?
Yeah, and I would say too that I think depending on the age of the child, right? So younger students will have struggles naturally with some math and with some spelling, and sometimes all that needs to be corrected is mom's attitude or injecting a little bit of energy or fun. But as they get older, I think there's room to say, you know what, this isn't normal behavior. Several years have gone by without an issue, and then all of a sudden, uncharacteristically, this has become an issue. So then it's time to take a look.
Or everything is going smoothly except this one thing.
Yeah.
Like everything is, basically happy and moving right along and we're making progress. except in writing or except in math. And then that's the thing that I look at.
There's also a negativity that can show up during school if there's excessive anxiety or things are just too hard consistently. That can point to a change that's necessary.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not always that it's too hard. It can also be too easy. So maybe you started with a specific math level, but the child is bored because it's just beneath the child. And so it might be that you need to speed things up. So that's two of the things you can do, right? If it's too hard, you can either slow it down and take some extra time and let the child kind of catch up, do a little bit more maturing. Or if it's too easy, you can speed things up. You can do the end of the chapter review or test and kind of see, do they know all the material in this chapter? Then move on. You don't have to do every single problem that's in that chapter.
Could I also say this, that if you're brand new to homeschooling and you have younger children, I think it's really important to remember that you're not going to ruin your child. If there is a subject that's a little difficult right now, you are not going to ruin them if you take a little break or if things just go a little slower. When they're young, you have time to work out some of these kinks. So don't put massive amounts of pressure on yourself that, oh my word, if I don't get first grade math exactly right, I'm going to ruin everyone forever. That's not how this works.
And you made a good point earlier, Sheila, that we're talking about skill-based subjects
Right.
primarily.
So skill-based subjects would be math, reading, writing, spelling, history, science. Those aren't skill-based subjects. So if the child isn't enjoying US history, it's not that it's too difficult. Maybe that's not their thing. Maybe they're more of a math and science child. Does that mean you drop history? Well, no, it doesn't. But maybe like for us, we found that when I was reading aloud, history, science, read alouds, if they had something that engaged their hands, they were much more willing to listen. So I let my boys play with Legos. They got to do puzzles. They even got to play with the little army men and set up their little sides. And then after I finished reading, they could have a little army man fight.
Yeah.
I think too, that it's not always curriculum that's the issue.
Right.
I think sometimes attitude plays a part or behavioral issues play a part. Stephanie mentioned anxiety about things. So I don't think that curriculum is always the bad guy.
That's true.
Correct.
Well, with attitude issues, how do you know what to change? How do you go about that?
One of the things that we face in my house is that we have winter blues. We get cabin fever. We get cabin fever every year. And so we schedule in a break and we kind of change our expectations and just to get through winter. And we still do our work and we still make progress, but it looks a lot different than it does in September or in May because we all, including mom, get winter blues. And so we just have to adjust our expectations. And I think a lot of times with attitude, adjusting expectations and saying, look, here's the thing that's causing us a problem. We know it's there. We have to work anyway, but let's just give ourselves, each other, a little grace and get through it. And then it's not a huge problem.
And I think you made a very important point, adjust expectations. You're assuming you set them to begin with. And
Yeah.
so I think up front, you bypass a lot of the attitude issues by setting reasonable expectations.
That's true.
So that your students know what is expected of them going in.
Right, especially if you have a child who's strong-willed and they're struggling to see you as teacher and authority, that can be something that you have to focus on for a little while and be patient with, to set clear goals and expectations and to be consistent about what you expect and what you're doing, what they should be doing, and model a respectful behavior so that they have that example to follow.
Yeah, a lot of homeschooling is not the academics, it's the character development. And that is hard work. There are times where we would not even do school because we had to focus on attitude towards siblings, towards mom, and a little attitude adjustment was necessary.
Yes. And I'm thinking too, even as kids get older, when there really is a struggle to know, is this an attitude kind of rebellion issue, or is this a school issue? This might seem very obvious and cliche, but get on your knees and pray and ask God to give you that discernment. God, please show me, is this a deep-seated attitude problem that I need your help to work with this child? Or is this something that I'm just completely missing? A little tweak will take care of this. Can you please give me the discernment if this math isn't the right math for this particular child? Will you please help me to know? I can't tell you how many times I've tried to figure out if I needed a schedule change or what, and I just get on my knees and ask God, because I don't have all wisdom, and he promises it. Even for things that we might think are little, like, I don't know what to make for dinner tonight, God, can you please help me? Okay, so ask him for help and for guidance. And it's amazing the thoughts that will enter your mind of things that you can change, or to have a trusted friend who can come alongside you and you can say, hey, look, this is what's happening. What do you think? And they can say, well, you know, I've been watching your kid at church or someplace else. I think this is an attitude thing. And graciously take that and use that wisdom from other people too.
Yes, sometimes we can't see the forest for the trees. We are too close to the situation and we can't see it. So a trusted friend, a spouse, a grandparent, somebody that you can trust and you can confide in and share and see if they are noticing anything that, you know, that stands out to them.
Well, and just deciding, is this an attitude problem because of rebellion or strong-willedness? Or is this an attitude problem because the kid isn't meshing with the curriculum and they're getting discouraged and it's coming out a little bit feisty? That never happens in my house ever, but I hear that it happens to some people. So even if it is an attitude problem, still figuring out that diagnosis of how to fix it. Sometimes it's what we're doing and sometimes it's just how we're approaching.
And sometimes there's a physical component to that. I had one child who needed glasses. So the attitude issue wasn't because they were disrespectful. They couldn't see what they were doing. And I mean, there's any range of physical issues that can play a part in being able to successfully do your academics. So
yeah, a lot of times it's those attitude problems that are indicative of something else, whether it's vision. 2 of my 3 kids are dyslexic. So when we had tears doing reading, well, later down the road, we figured out, it wasn't an attitude. It was that literally he could not read. And I was getting frustrated because the child wasn't doing what I was asking him to do, and he wasn't doing it because he couldn't do it. So
yeah. And sometimes all you need is a little boost of the blood sugar, or go outside and take a lap or 2 around the house and come back in, and it's amazing what that will do with your attitude.
One of mine as a maybe 7-year-old, the solution was that we had to do math first, that it was breakfast, math, and because that was her painful thing. And then if the day was cleared of math, we could face the whole rest of the day. But the anxiety that would come up knowing that math was coming wrecked several days before I figured out that we should maybe just get it over with and then have fun stuff to look forward to.
And you know, moms, I think that another thing, we can get easily distracted, right? There's a lot going on in our world, and we can become, especially if you have young ones, demand a lot of attention. And sometimes we're just tired. And so then we want to go in our own little world and we get distracted and feel like we don't have energy. So I think maybe even guarding our own minds and hearts and making sure that, hey, when I face the day, this is school time and I'm going to refuse to be distracted by anything else. And I'm going to really focus on these kids and really figure out what needs to happen. Because some of it is just, I just don't feel like dealing. And then problems mount up.
Yeah,
It's true. Amber, I really appreciate what you said about prayer and along with focused attention, because when we lived overseas, we were very, very busy, like a lot of us are. And I was in prayer because my oldest was really, really struggling and a lot of attitude issues were coming out and rebellion. And when I prayed and asked God about it, I felt like he was leading me to focus more of my time and attention on my child, not just in school, but outside of school, showing him that he's really important to me and that I value him by giving him my time, because he wasn't getting the time he needed, but I didn't see it.
Yeah.
That's good.
I've heard many, we've talked about this subject a few times, so I've heard if you have someone who has a lot of energy, like I have an ADHD child, I often will make him do exercise in the morning. Like he needs to work it. I think Jen is the one who said that. Like do gym first.
Exercise first.
Yeah.
Recess is not a reward.
Yeah.
For a certain kind of child,
Yes.
recess is absolutely primary. We have to sweat it out, because if they're not going to sweat it out, it's coming out in their words and they're toed.
Yeah.
And it's just a more pleasant, functional, productive, balanced day to fill their needs first. And then they can sit down and focus when they've kind of sweated some of it off.
Yeah.
Okay, and Jen told me once we were working at a convention, I'm like, what do I do with my boy? And she said, Amber, best parenting advice for boys, a happy dog is a tired dog. So just go with that. So I thought that was really good. I've actually shared that with a lot.
I
of
got that
moms.
from a veteran mom of boys
that's-
when my first son was
That's
born.
the
yeah,
deal.
yeah, tired dog is a happy dog.
Uh-huh.
And, I know Judy's a big proponent of the hiking, rocking chair, push-ups, whatever it takes so that you can sit
Trampoline
down
in
and
my
listen.
house.
Yeah.
Mhm, Yep.
Yeah.
I sometimes make my son stand up for math. Like,
Mhm.
you don't have to sit down.
No.
Because he'll just wiggle through it or not pay attention. I'm like, you don't need a chair.
Yeah.
Right.
Here you go.
And it might be good to interject here that homeschooling is not bringing school home.
Oh, yeah.
There is not the expectation that you have a desk that your student has to sit at to do reading or spelling. I mean, we had many days where we did reading underneath the dining room table. We built a tent with a blanket and reading was much more fun when it was under a table. And I had one who needed a rocking chair because, man, if I asked that child to sit still, all he could think was, don't move, don't move, don't move. And he totally missed what I was
And then he's
doing.
not even listening. So how
Exactly.
is that? There's no learning.
Mm-mm.
And Judy, you didn't even have Pinterest to come up with
No,
that
I
idea. Yeah, and I'm thinking some of us want so bad to have a Pinterest homeschool, we don't need it. Ask God for wisdom. Again,
Yes.
what little thing? My daughter loves to do her spelling words because I hand her a dry erase marker and let her do it on the window. So we have two big doors in our dining room. And so how fun is that? I get to use the dry erase marker to write my spelling words on the window.
Yeah.
Fill a tray with some salt. Let's do your spelling words and salt today. Okay, that took me about a nanosecond to just think of. It's very easy to do. And it's like the highlight of her day.
It changes the monotony of the
Yes.
same old,
Yes.
same.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the beauty with homeschooling.
Uh-huh.
You get to set, what
Yep.
the day looks like.
Yep.
Sidewalk chalk.
Yes,
That's one that you can do.
Sidewalk
yes,
chalk.
absolutely.
Especially when they're young, just learning
Mhm.
letters and numbers.
Mhm.
It's so fun out there.
But not in January.
Yeah.
Unless you're in Florida.
Yeah. I live in the South. I also have on here boredom, lack of motivation. What can we do for that? I think we've addressed some of these other ones.
Yeah, I had one that got very easily bored, and my go-to turned out to be letting her lead, because you have to do math. Sorry, you just do. It's my rules. You have to write every day. You're going to write something for me. But if your passion is art and what you want to read about and write about is art history, I can work with that. And if the assignment says you're going to write a 5-paragraph essay about George Washington, and my kid says to me, "Oh, Mom, can't I do Monroe?" Yes, you can. Because if that is more engaging to you, then fine. If the topic is boring, how can we get away from that and make it interesting for you? If we're supposed to be studying bears and everything your kid wants to know is polar bears, then let's do polar bears. And I've gotten some essays about some really interesting things that I never would think to research, but sometimes the boredom is, I'm just doing this. I don't have any options. I don't have any control. This isn't interesting to me, even though it's interesting stuff. And, if we give them a little leash, sometimes that works.
And I think that's good for a little bit older kids. I think
Mhm.
when they're young and you say, why doesn't my kindergartner want to read? Well, maybe because the kindergartner isn't quite ready for the level you're pushing him to or something. So I think that's another thing with smaller children. Also, not all school is fun all the time. So I was talking to someone else last night and we were saying how even if I don't feel motivated to keep the toilet clean in the bathroom, I don't have to like be excited to do that. It just needs to happen. So I'm going to do a lot of things in life as a mom or whatever that I'm not super excited about. I'm not super motivated and excited, but I need to do the job and I need to do it. Right. And so sometimes with our kids, that's another thing, right? Like, okay, but we're going to read every day. I'll try to make it as pleasant as possible, but this is just what's going to happen. And so I think there's that part too.
Sure. And sometimes not all learning has to be at home.
Yeah.
We can change it up. We can go on a field trip. I love notebooks. I love writing in notebooks because when my children talk about something that excites them, I try to write it down. And then later I think, is there something we can do outside the home that would spark that interest and create more desire to learn? And so we've done field trips that way. There've been times where we just turn on a YouTube video at lunchtime, say, hey, if we got our math and language arts done by lunch, we get to watch this video during our lunchtime. So there's lots of other things you can do to spark interest and get life back into your homeschool. There was one day where I just decided, hey, it's not Christmas time, but I'm going to throw all my wassail or spice cider stuff into the crock pot, and we're just going to sip hot apple cider during school today. So, and that was like, oh, hey, Mom, thanks for doing that today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of times if you just vary your routine, so if you always start with a particular subject, maybe do that after lunch, or change the location. If you always work at a desk or at the kitchen table, build a fire and do your reading in front of the fire, or build the tent and, let the kids be explorers and they can read under their blanket tent. If it's not the dead of winter, you can pack up your books and go to a park, or you could go to the beach, or you go to the lake, or, just change the location. A lot of times boredom sets in when it's monotonous, when it's the same old, same old. So if you just tweak a little bit, it will reinvigorate the child and you. You can get bored with the same routine.
I think something you said, Amber, about kindergartners, I think sometimes boredom isn't really boredom. I think sometimes boredom is me expecting too much of a younger child.
Yes.
Kindergartners need to play. They need to play. They learn while they play. It's not wasted time. And so I think sometimes we have to adjust our expectations that we're placing on our children.
Judy, that's so true. I've talked to so many people in the booth, and so many of them are like, well, I want my child to be challenged. I don't want my child to, for it to be too easy. But think about it. Like, do you like to do things that are always a little bit hard? Like, we prefer when it's just a little bit on the easy side, right? So it's okay. We actually learn better when it's not excessively difficult. If you're always reading college level books, then that can be really hard. Sometimes you just want to read something fluffy, and fluffy means that it's a little bit on the easier side.
Yes.
Right. And there are so many good books that aren't necessarily up to the level, the hardest thing that your kid could read, but they're still so valuable and so fun.
Yes.
And it's a mental break to have
Yes.
something easy to read.
And
Yes,
I'm so sorry.
if you have a subject that is hard, like math, then it's okay for another subject to be a little lighter.
Yeah.
Not everything needs to be.
Yes. And also that idea that it's a marathon, right? This is not a sprint. Kindergarten is not the end. They're not graduating and leaving you next year. And especially if you're new and your oldest is your kindergartner, you feel like every single thing you do right at this moment is going to make or break them for life. They are not the person they're going to be. In even a year, you're going to see tremendous change in them and in what they can handle and their abilities. And I have just stood back and marveled at my younger kids, and I'm thinking, oh, they are never going to do this. They are never going to be able to do this. They're never, and then I'm blown away by what they're interested in and what I thought would never happen. And there they are. So there is time to challenge them and push them in different areas as they get older. This is a marathon.
And those physical growth spurts, I
Yes.
remember my kids would go to bed and sleep 12 hours and have grown an inch. There's
Yes.
those mental things too,
Yes.
they're not getting it. And all of a sudden it's like a light flip switches, and all of a sudden they get it.
Yes.
And the little bit on an easy side is also a confidence builder.
Yes.
If I'm always handing my child a book that they struggle to read, they're going to
Yes.
feel like a failure
Yes.
after a while.
Yes.
Yeah.
But if I make sure that they get books that they have fun and they laugh when they read and they get all done and they say, Mom, that was a great book.
Or they want to keep reading, like
Exactly.
they're, you know, the schedule says one chapter and they're like, can I read another one? Because it was easy and they
Yes.
want to keep going.
Yes. And who says, I mean, school doesn't equal hard.
Right.
It doesn't have to equal hard. They aren't synonymous. And I think sometimes we have it in our head that that's synonymous, and it's not. The goal of education is to learn. That's the goal. We want them to learn, and there's lots to learn, and we can take our time to learn it. It's fun. I also wanted to interject this. If any of you have boys, just plan on them really not learning or being aware of anything from about, what are we saying, 12 to 14?
Oh, yeah,
I found with my boys between like, for sure, 7th, 8th grade, it's like, wow. It's unbelievable. So even
All
being
the energy
super-
is going into growing.
Yes, yes. And so even being, I wish, I have had to apologize so many times and even ask God for forgiveness because of, it's just, I get really hard on those boys. And I think I need to just take a step back and be patient and understanding of their development.
That's
Yeah.
true. And stress has been proven to impair learning.
Yeah.
Yes, and we've gone through that too, where if there is some stressful life event going on, then a month later, I'm wondering why we're struggling so much with spelling. And the reason is that somebody's little brain is concentrating on survival, on they're sleep deprived, they're worried, they're using their energy somewhere else that's just more important, more basic. And so school is just kind of swirling around, but not really happening. And sometimes the right answer is to put it down. We're just not going to do spelling for a month. And then when life calms down and when you're over the anxiety and when everything is okay again, we're going to pick it back up and we're going to be fine. And nobody has died yet of a spelling break.
Yeah.
So,
And I am so much of the time as a mother, a taskmaster, when I really need to be a cheerleader.
Yes.
I really need to be in their corner and they need to
Yes.
feel like
Yeah.
I'm on their side.
yes.
Yeah. We use that in our home. I'm on your team.
Yeah.
I'm on your team. And even Judy, when you said that, I think, have you smiled today? Right? Have you smiled at your children? Do they know that you love them? You don't just love homeschooling, that you actually love them, and that's why you're in this? Yeah.
And also that you appreciate them, the
Yes.
time and effort they're putting in, because sometimes it really is hard for them to gain a skill and to practice it and to do what you say or to even listen to you. It's hard for some children. So one thing that I noticed in our homeschool is that I'm also a taskmaster and I see everything that's wrong with that paper and I'm very tempted to point out what's wrong with it. But then I think, no, I need to point out what's right with that paper. Say, hey, son, I really appreciate how you worded that. That was brilliant. And that was so much better than that last paragraph you did. I'm so amazed at what you did. You don't want to overblow it, but of course, notice what they do right and let them know when you see what they've done right or their progress. Say, hey, a month ago, you weren't getting this, but look what you're doing now. I'm so proud of you.
I often don't know what to do when my child has a problem writing. And then like, do I correct the writing? Do I not correct the writing? So yeah, it's a struggle, I think, to figure out exactly where to play there. I think we just touched on attitude. Anything else about your attitude, about mom's attitude? Because we talked a lot about it right now, but like,
Where
how
do
do
we
we
start?
change our attitude if it's a struggle?
I think one thing that Lisa mentioned yesterday was my attitude's going to be a whole lot better for the day if my child's not waking me up in the morning. I need to make sure that I am up ahead of my children, that I have a few moments to kind of get my act together, to absolutely stop and talk with the Lord and invite him into my day, because it's going to go a whole lot better if he's the one that's blazing the path instead of me, storming through and trying to change that. So I think the start of the day is where my attitude starts.
I start to get really tense and anxious if my environment is completely out of control. And when you have 5 children under the age of 12, that typically can happen really fast. So I noticed for me, one big attitude thing was at night before I went to bed, the kitchen had to be picked up. And there were many nights I did not want to do that. And I don't have it. I can't do it. I don't have the energy. I can't do one more thing. I need my me time and I need to be quiet, whatever. Well, what would happen is I would give up at that moment, go to bed. And then when I wake up, not only do I have the chaos of the morning, I have the chaos that I'd left the night before. So for me, it was it's almost a spiritual issue. Like, you know that you're more tempted to sin and you're more tempted to be impatient and angry with your kids if this is the case. So stop, take a few minutes. Yes, it's not fun, but in the morning, you're so thankful. So I think even just having that basic pickup at night, so you're going to bed with kind of a clean environment or an orderly environment before you start your day is helpful.
Definitely. And before the school day gets rolling, to consider what your attitude is that day. Do I have a critical spirit? Am I prone to complain? Maybe just think about things you're thankful for in your children. Just stop and think about the good things for a little bit before you start your homeschool day, so you start off on a positive note. And just be mindful of where you are, that you don't fall into that habit of being critical or harsh or complaining in front of your kids, because they do pick up on that. How many times have I said something that was like, oh, I just sound like my mom? Well, it's because I heard it growing up so many times. Well, they hear us complaining, they hear us being critical, and they can pick it up too. So we can watch that behavior in us.
Yeah. Gratitude produces joy. So if you can look for the good, sometimes, sometimes it's hard. You have to really dig. But if you can, look for the good in the child, in the situation, in your day, then that just helps to kind of turn your perspective around.
Can we also say something about sleep? There's a lot going on these days about sleep studies and how important sleep is and blah, blah, blah. Well, moms, you need sleep too. And when you have a nursing baby and toddlers, that's hard. But typically, if you work in a nap for them, rest, take that time to rest. But also for some of us, we have gotten into a habit of being on our phones, scrolling, binge watching when the kids are in bed, and we keep ourselves up till 1 or 2 in the morning and then expect that when we wake up, our kids are going to be perfect and let us get right. No, it's not going to happen that way. So I would actually even challenge you, as I have been challenged, to go to bed at night and get a full night's sleep and take care of yourself so that you are refreshed in the morning. And yes, there are exceptions to that when you have nursing babies. That's a hard time. But look for the opportunities to rest, and don't waste precious time that you could be resting and giving yourself a mental break by being on your phone, checking up on all that stuff. Figure out how to discipline yourself with that. It's important.
And not only sleep, but food.
Yes.
Food too. I mean, how many times as a busy mom do you get to 11 o'clock and think, breakfast? Did I eat breakfast? I don't remember eating breakfast. Or I run through the kitchen, grab a donut, and all I had for breakfast was sugar. And then I wonder why my attitude is really poor. So,
Or if you're like me, scraping cold mac and cheese out of the bottom
Yeah.
of the can at 1 in the afternoon.
I'll just eat the leftovers.
I'll just have
Cleaning the
that
kids'
cold-
plates off.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm on the toddler diet.
Yes.
I've seen that before. And I'm just eating whatever they're not eating.
Toddler diet. The green beans off the high chair.
Let's shift a little bit and talk about curriculum changes, and specifically how we can address any curriculum changes. We talked a little bit about how, if history is, you can slow it down or speed it up, but maybe those skill-based subjects.
So I mentioned that 2 of my 3 kids are dyslexic, and I discovered it with my oldest when we started with kindergarten, and he was a very young boy, but we're homeschooling, so let's just go ahead and start. And so we started with the kindergarten reading. It was a little bit different back in my day. It's changed a lot in the 20 years I've been homeschooling. But so when we started kindergarten, then 1st grade, then 2nd grade, by the time we hit 3rd grade, that young boy was in level D, the equivalent of what is now D. And the readers in D, there's a big jump from grade 2 readers to level D readers. And this is my dyslexic child. So he could not read the readers. And it was tears for me, for him. It was not pretty. It was not good. And so what I realized I had to do was make some changes. And so what I did was I went to the library and I found US history readers that were more like the grade 2 readers. So, Sam the Minuteman and things like that. And so those were our readers for a while. And we slowed down level D. And then so it took us about 1.5 years to do D and 1.5 years to do E. So we took 3 years to do 2 levels of Sonlight. That allowed him time to mature, grow into his reading level, and he finally caught up. But it took me slowing it down. We didn't push through. We didn't say, no, we got to do D now. And next year we're going to do E, because he would have always fallen behind in his reading level. And then, we did some other things as well, some outside help for that. But that was key, that I didn't push through, because this is what the instructor's guide, that is your tool, not your taskmaster. Just because it says this is what you're reading on this day, you can change that. You have the flexibility to meet your child.
Yeah, and I know in math, I had a child who was so we would standardize test, because different states we've lived in require them different years. And the 1 year he tested very, very low on like computation, whatever it would be, that I knew he needed more mental math work. So and it was low enough, like it does not always, just because they don't do outstanding on standardized tests, it's okay. But this was very low, like well below average. I don't know, 12th percentile, something very low. But he was a bright kid, and he was okay conceptually, but I knew I got to slow down, and I've got to maybe even use a different math for this child that will emphasize math facts more. We need to do more mental math. We need to do more drilling, which wasn't something my other 2 students needed. The ones that were older didn't need as much of that. They just picked it up faster. So there's that, right? That it's a different struggle, and so make a change.
Right.
That's true. With my oldest, we had problems with math, but I didn't pick up on it until he was in 3rd grade. We started with kindergarten and 1st grade, and I noticed that some of the things that weren't coming naturally to him, skip counting took forever, certain concepts wouldn't stick, the math facts weren't sticking, and by 3rd grade, it was just you couldn't go on without the facts or some of those basic fundamentals of math, and I was wondering what we should do about it. So that's what prompted me to change to another curriculum, which did better, but still there were learning challenges that I wasn't aware of. We had to go get some outside help.
Yeah.
Outside help said, you go at his pace, at his level, introduce 1 to 2 new topics a week, review, and just keep going until he gets it. And we were behind about 2 years in math, almost all the way through school, except through high school. And just because we were patient, we found what approach worked for him, and he kept working at it. He eventually got there. And last year, he scored college readiness on his math and the SAT. He got there. So it just takes a lot of time and patience, especially in their areas of great struggle.
Yeah.
One of the areas that we had to make a lot of mid-course corrections was spelling. My older 2 were natural spellers. They saw it in print, they spelled it a couple of times, they could spell. And so we hit a lot of boredom and a lot of attitude, and why do I have to do spelling? I can spell. And I realized, I agreed. If the goal is to learn how to spell and you can spell, why do we need to do more of that? So we actually skipped spelling for several years because they can spell. Then my next child came along, and she's an amazing, amazing human being who cannot spell. And so we had to go to a spelling program that I never would have picked for anybody else. It did not appeal to me. It would have killed my other 2 children because of the amount of repetition, and it was perfect for that one. And so here I was feeling like I've been homeschooling for a bunch of years now. I know what I'm doing. I know what we like. I know what's going to work. And I ended up with something that I had turned my nose up at, that I never would have done with anybody else. And it was the right answer. Yeah. So sometimes, again, with adjusting mama's expectations
And attitude.
Thank you. That sometimes course corrections mean really shifting what you're even thinking will work or thinking we need, because if you need something different, then you just do.
And sometimes you won't be able to identify right away. Sometimes it takes trial and error. I know with one of our kids, there was some real struggles with fine motor skills and being able to hold a pencil correctly, to be able to put words on paper. And it manifested itself as just a hatred for composition exercises or writing or essays or anything. And such a creative child normally, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And it was a process of maybe change up the assignments or do the assignments side by side. Sometimes I would sit and write along with a student, and none of those things worked. So you're not always going to hit on it the first time. What finally worked was realizing that it was a mechanical issue. It was a fine motor issue, so that this child spent so much time saying, I got to get the paper right, tipped correctly on the page, and I've got to hold the pencil right. And by the time the pencil hit the paper, all creativity had flown out the window. So when I let that child at third grade level learn how to type,
Yes.
and I took the pencil and the paper out of the equation and said, I'm going to make this easier for you, that's when we saw the change. But it took us a while to get there. So you're not always going to nail it the first time around.
We had the same exact thing with our dyslexic child. The assignment was the bare minimum number of words, write 3 sentences, and it was like the dog ran, the dog barked, whatever. As soon as I taught him to type in third grade, the yellow fluffy dog barked incessantly at the, like the words flowed, because he wasn't trying to limit the writing. Typing came so much faster.
Yes.
And it freed him to be able to actually be creative.
I was going to make you tell that story.
Oh.
I was like, because I did teach Ollie to my son to type because he cannot hold a pencil. It bugs him.
And there are a lot of people who bemoan the fact that handwriting is not a thing anymore and we're losing an art. And I don't disagree with that. I think it's important, especially that kids know how to sign their name and fill out a form. But in the greater scheme of things, that child of mine who is now a healthy, happy, functioning adult, never really has to pick up a pen in this culture, in this day and age. And the fact that they have those typing skills really has made all the difference and not impaired them for life in general.
Yeah, that child of mine that I taught to type, he is actually now a very good writer. And I'm convinced that had I stuck it out and made him handwrite every assignment, he wouldn't be where he is now.
That's true. Mine, unfortunately, did not like to type. And even with that, I was like, oh gosh, now what do I do? I don't like to type either. So we had to get creative with the subject matter. So we found that my oldest loves stories, absolutely loves stories. So we wrote a lot of stories, and we used writing assignments from interesting things with the history or science, things that he encountered that really sparked his interest. And sometimes I'd find he'd be writing a story on his own or writing about something on his own. And it just amazed me. So I was lucky that worked.
And I had the opposite kid who, even as a, first grader, and you get these writing assignments that imagine you're a crayon. She was like, no, can I just write you about, robins or blue jays or something real? Like, I can't do the crayon thing, Mom. Okay.
And we're giving you permission
Right.
to change assignments. It's
Right.
really okay. Any curriculum is not written just for your child. You know your child. Sonlight writes an amazing curriculum, but we've never met your child. You are the one that is the expert when it comes to your child. And so if you need to change up an assignment or the approach, please do that, because the goal is to get your child to learn.
Now, you guys talked too about holding pencil for writing composition, but I just wanted to give you this little thing that I did in math. So my kids will look at a whole math sheet and just die, right? So I started putting Post-it notes all the way down. So we pull one Post-it note off and do those problems and pulled it. So it's oh my word, it's just kind of a trick, right? But also with holding the pencil, I would buy the dots, those colored dots that you might use for a garage sale or something.
yeah.
And I would quickly write all the answers, because easy math, we're talking first grade level. So adding and subtracting. I would write all the answers on dots. And then instead of having to physically write your math answer, you find the right answer and
Amber,
pull the
that's
stick-
brilliant.
Yeah, pull the sticky note
Wow.
off. And it took me, honestly, a couple minutes. It did not take long to pull that off. And again, no Pinterest. That was just an idea that God popped into my brain. And I am not normally a creative. I'm not too much of an outside the box person.
That's awesome.
So
And it's fun. You
it
get to
was,
play with stickers.
yes, it's so fun.
Solves the boredom thing.
Yep.
Well, before we move to encouragement, I have one more question about integrating new curriculum mid-year. So is in any advice quickly on what we can do there?
I think it's one subject at a time. I would not recommend saying our whole school program is not working, so we're going to change it all.
Agree.
I think you're just setting yourself up for disappointment and stress and struggle. And so I would say step back. Again, go through the whole diagnosis thing, figure out what's not working and why, and then choose the one that's your priority. If your student is mostly struggling with reading, then find different ways to change up what you already have. Or if you truly believe you need to switch it entirely, then take it a little bit of a time at a time and ease that new curriculum into the rest of your school day. But allow them to keep what they're familiar with and what they know, so that you're not yanking the entire rug out from under them.
And it's not all gonna go amazing and smooth every time. A lot of people in the booth ask me, how do you do it all? I don't do it all. Well, but how do you do it all? I said, okay, here's the trick, because I can't do it all. That's not the answer anybody wants. So here's the answer I give them. Slack at something different every year. If science was just a travesty and we only did a third of it, and I had a baby and somebody was in the hospital and then we moved, and so we did like 2 experiments the entire year, forgive yourself. And then next year, when we plan, science is going to be primary. That's the thing we're going to make sure we do. And probably you'll slack on something different. But if it's math, then the next year, math is going to be the primary thing, so that you're never just dropping one ball all the time. It's more of a juggle.
The other thing that's helpful is when you do find that curriculum that you feel good about switching to, take a little time on the front end to read the instructions at the beginning. The teacher notes, the suggestions, how that curriculum is supposed to work, how long it takes every day. Maybe there's some front end prep work that would make your first lesson with your child much smoother. It's not fun for anybody when we show up to a class and teacher's not prepared, teacher doesn't know how it works, and much less the child doesn't know how it works. So I've done it before where we started with a curriculum and I didn't read through carefully and I realized, oh, I should have been doing that. That would have worked much better. So taking a little time on the front end really helps, and putting all your materials together so you can just roll smoothly.
Absolutely.
I'm also wondering about, say a high school, let's say I'm in an Algebra 1 program that's not really working for my student. So if I need to make that switch, but I'm halfway through my Algebra 1 year, right? So what do we do?
I just did that.
Yeah,
We just canned our Algebra 2 curriculum a few weeks ago.
okay,
And the reason why was because I have a very, very brilliant child who's good at math, but it was too advanced. It was taking way too long. She was frustrated. I was frustrated. I even bought something that was a companion to the book that would help walk through. I still couldn't sort out those math problems with her. And it was bogging down the whole homeschool day. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to sacrifice our homeschool experience for this math curriculum. We're going to change to something I know you'll be comfortable with because we used it before, and it's fine.
and I was thinking too, since it's incremental, they might be able to catch up. You know, it's not like you're just throwing out the whole year or whatever. There's time to make up.
One of the other things that I did was to buddy teach with a friend. You might have seen Lisa on one of the previous recordings. She's a math girl and I'm an English girl. And so, and our girls are the same age. So we would buddy teach, and I would teach the English portion and she would take care of the math. And so if there's an area that you don't feel confident in, see if there's a friend that you can buddy up with. And sometimes your kid will do better for another person than they will for you. The ministry of the outsider is what we like to call it.
That is the truth.
Absolutely. So last minute encouragement, one quick thing, go.
Start with
Here.
Stephanie.
Okay.
Celebrate the victories.
Yeah.
When they do something well, just let them know how excited you are about it and just roll in it. Enjoy it.
What she said.
Ditto.
Encouragement. There's no perfect curriculum.
Yeah.
It's not a treasure hunt to find the perfect curriculum, which will make everything work. It's just a process. Just do what works, switch up what doesn't work, keep going. It's really about the relationship with your kids is primary. And if at the end you still love each other, then that's the thing.
God has not given us a spirit of fear or of fearfulness, some versions would say. So embrace what's right in front of you. Stop projecting on the future. This has been so, God has to hit me over the head with this all the time. I can only deal with what's right in front of my windshield, not what's down the road, over the bridge, around the corner, on the next exit. I can't. I can control what's in front of my windshield. And today you have kids in your home to hug and to smile at and to love and to read to and to cook for and to clean for and to do their laundry. That's what God's given you. So embrace that, love that, and let God take care of what's down the road. And He will give you what you need for every single step. He will. He promises.
Learn to laugh together.
Yes.
Absolutely laugh together.
I love it all. I love it all. I hope you guys enjoyed this. We will have a ton of sessions today, as well as, like I said, you can watch all the replays for the next 30 days. We will be live again today at 4:30, I believe, for our final session. If you have any questions specifically you would like for that session, you would like for us to answer for that session, please go over to sonlight.com/connections and join our Facebook group if you haven't already, and put the comment in there. Otherwise, I'll be trying to read live as we go along. So join us at 4:30. We'll see you guys later. Bye.